You again. Guess we can do this now. I do have a towel. What's that? Cowl? Oh, don't be ridiculous. Cowl's not a word.
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
In my defense, I did tell you all I had a massive Kylo obsession a couple of videos ago. Alright, let's get back into it and get into the second part of the discussion on the Force bond between Rey and Kylo, specifically how that impacts their Force Skype sessions that happen in The Last Jedi. If for some reason you clicked on part 2 without clicking on part 1, click on part 1 here and get caught up before we keep going. So now I want to break down the Force Skype moments from The Last Jedi. Please keep in mind I have only seen the film 4 times, and it's been a little while since I've seen it, so hopefully I'm going to regurgitate all of this in the proper order. In the event that I miss something, please leave it in the comments. So, Force Skype, or Force Timing if you prefer. It begins when Rey is on Octo waiting to get her first Jedi lesson from Luke. I think it's very interesting that the first time this happens is before Rey has her lesson about reaching out with the Force and all of that, because I think it goes to prove that she's really not doing this because this is the thing that she's just had no training to do. And in fact, this is something that Kylo even says, that the effort for her to do this would kill her. It's obvious, too, that there's a certain amount of focus involved to make this Force connection happen, because when Rey shoots Kylo, the act startles both of them out of it, and they lose their connection for a second. Then, of course, within a few seconds, they're right back into it. I think the connection worked the first time, because they were both in a quiet state, both silently trying to calm their minds. Kylo, of course, has just come from a stressful meeting with Snoke, and Rey is about to go to a potential stressful meeting with Luke Skywalker. And then later, they were able to reconnect because they were both searching for each other. Not because they actually wanted to talk necessarily, I think it's more that they wanted to understand what had just happened. I also think it's interesting that Rey has just discovered this ability to see her arch nemesis from across the galaxy, and she also hates him so much that she would just instantaneously shoot him when she saw him, and yet she says absolutely nothing about this to Luke. My guess is that she's either currently questioning Luke's stability or his intentions, or is just not entirely sure how he'd react. She doesn't want to scare him off from helping her. Either way, her silence betrays the hateful persona that she's trying to put on for Kylo going forward. I think she's as curious about what's going on as she is angry. I also think it's interesting that while she is really angry and ready to shoot Kylo right away, Kylo, I mean, his first instinct is to use the Force and try to, mind trick her into bringing Luke. I do think it's interesting that he goes for the mental manipulation right away, but as soon as he's aware that that is not going to work, he goes into, what's going on? Can you see me? I can see you, as opposed to, I need to kill you, you're my enemy. On the next Force Skype, we see Kylo observing First Order things while Rey plays in the rain. Again, they are both in a place of calm. This time they have an actual conversation as opposed to Rey just yelling and screaming the entire time. Kylo seems completely in favor of going down this rabbit hole and seeing what's going on. To me, Kylo is either trusting the Force here to be connecting them in some way, or just simply sees nothing bad can come of this whole connection for him and figures why not. Because whatever's going on is playing right into his hands. He wants to talk to Rey. He wants her help with Snoke. He may even want her, to be honest, but that's a matter of interpretation. For Rey, she acts like she doesn't want anything to do with this. She's trying very hard to seem calm and unafraid, and she does this by blatantly telling him that she's found Luke Skywalker, which is probably not the most strategic move she could have made. Here, Kylo prompts her to start asking about what happened when he destroyed the Jedi Temple, specifically what happened when he fell to the dark side, which of course starts the progression of Rey coming to understand who Ben Solo was and how she eventually warms up to him. Now, these two Force Skypes have come at very calm, quiet times, as I've said, and these calm, quiet times would come at very logical points in the story, but I think there's also something telling to the fact that they're happening in quiet moments. I think they have to be in the right frame of mind in order for Snoke to connect them. Granted, that's all conjecture on my part. I'm operating under the assumption that Snoke is actively connecting them and actively choosing the times in which they speak. That is just my guess. I could be completely wrong. Snoke could have just formed this bond and it's just happening on its own accord. Again, just going off of how I interpreted the film. Alright. Skype call number 3, and here's where things change up a bit. Here, Kylo is presumably in the middle of a calm moment, although we really don't know what he's up to, but on Rey's end of things, she does not have a calm mind right now. She is angrily walking around the island with a very firm idea of what she wants to do, and she gets interrupted by Kylo. I think having connected a few times, it's getting easier for Snoke, or the Force to pick certain moments. And while the shirtless Kylo scene has become something of a meme, I think there's a little bit more going on here. Rian Johnson, the director of The Last Jedi, has said that he intentionally wanted a shirtless scene because he wanted to prove that Rey could see Kylo. And if he was half naked, she would respond to that, and it would give the audience a clear understanding of what she's saying. Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm gonna take that with a grain of salt, but regardless of why Rian Johnson chose to have a shirtless scene, I'm more interested in why Snoke may have chosen this moment. Again, operating under the assumption that Snoke is choosing these. Rey is clearly embarrassed at seeing a shirtless Kylo, which might seem kind of kiddie, but you gotta remember who she is as a character. I was saying in my last video that she's used to seeing all these grisly, really well covered up people of Jakku, and now here's this strange man who keeps showing up in her mind, and this time he doesn't have a shirt on. It's distinctly possible that this is the first pair of man boobs that she's ever seen. Her prudishness entirely fits her character. We even see it early in the film when Luke is milking like the dinosaur walruses things for the green milk. After he milks the animal makes eye contact with Rey, and Rey, embarrassed, looks away. Like, she's going to be awkward in this scene. And I think that's the point. I think any kind of relation or connection or attraction Rey could have towards Kylo plays into Snoke's hands. At a certain level, I think it's possible that Snoke wanted something somewhat romantic, at least on Rey's end, to develop because it's going to make her more likely to go to Kylo, which is going to make it more likely for Kylo to bring Rey to Snoke. In fact, the next time you're watching that scene and you think it's super intimate and stuff, just imagine this face looking at him and yeah, it's a real mood killer. Actually, that brings up a really good question of whether or not Snoke could see what was going on in these Skype calls. And I actually have absolutely no answer to that, so I'm not really going to address it. I think it's a really interesting question. Let me know what you think in the comments. Scene 4. And this scene is the most interesting to me, especially because it has the most ramifications. Rey has just got done going to infinity and beyond, and now she's back in her hut. She's not talking to Luke about her vision about her parents, she's talking to Kylo. What I want to know most about this scene is, did Snoke have to engineer this one? Or at this point, did they actually conjure one another on their own? For the first time, they're really talking, having a conversation, not well, did you know this? Well, did you know this? But they're opening up, or at least Rey is, emotionally about what she's going through. So we don't see the start of this call. We don't know if it happened like the others, or if this is something that they can now do. Maybe this is the first time they are actively talking to each other and not the end of the film. But either way, here Rey has let go of her hate enough in order to talk to Kylo. Now, I don't think this is the smartest move on her part, but she is driven by a need to find answers. And she's gone to Kylo because Luke has been of little help. Luke also wouldn't be happy that she had gone to the cave in the first place. Here, I think she's also starting to sense some amount, however small, of good in Kylo. This could just be because she's getting to know him as a person, but this could also be their Force bond at work again. Because they have this interconnectedness, it becomes inherently harder for him to hide how he's feeling, or for Rey to hide how she's feeling. Of course, this is all also part of Snoke's plan, so as much as a good thing, it's also a bad thing, I guess. But now two really interesting things happen. First, they seem to physically touch. Now, whether or not through the Force they have transcended time and space and have actually touched each other, or they're experiencing some sort of Force vision that is strong enough where they can feel as though they've physically connected, I don't know, and I'm not sure it really matters. But either way, when they touch hands, they see a vision about the other one. I think in this moment they are seeing the throne room fight that is about to happen. And then two, Luke walks in and actually sees Kylo, which is interesting because at this point it seemed like this very one-on-one thing where only the two of them were experiencing it. So I don't know if they're in this like Force communication dome, and when Luke enters it he can also see Kylo. I don't know if this is now a point where Luke is no longer cut off from the Force. Either way, Luke sees them and he's not happy about it. So now Luke is on edge, Rey is on edge because she thinks Luke tried to kill Ben, and they have a little bit of a tussle, and you know how it goes. Either way, Rey is now very set on redeeming Ben Solo. Once again, this seems like the thing we want our heroes to do, but little do we know that this is also exactly what Snoke wanted. Which brings me to my favorite scene in any of the new Star Wars films, potentially my favorite scene in a Star Wars film, that throne room fight. And I guess I can't technically linger on this very long because it is not a Force Skype thing and this is a Force Skype video, but it's kind of important because this is the scene where it gets revealed by Snoke that he's been a puppet master this whole time. So in the scene when Snoke says that he's behind the link between Kylo and Rey that's allowed them to see each other, we get the smallest reaction from Kylo. Just the smallest tilt of the head. I have to wonder if that's because Kylo is surprised, if that's because Kylo knew and is surprised Snoke told them. Part of me thinks it's just another nail in Snoke's coffin. I mean, at this point, Kylo has already set his mind on killing Snoke. It certainly doesn't help to add motivation to a guy who already wants to kill you. And then we watch these two in a ballet of death and destruction, and again, I think this is where their bond really causes them to fight together so well, but that could also be my experience with the Legends universe getting in the way, and if The Last Jedi taught me anything, it's not to let that happen anymore. So now let's jump to the end of the film. As I discussed in the last video, I think they've reached a point where they can call each other at will. I'm hoping this continues in episode 9. I like the idea that they could be fighting each other by day and then Skyping each other by night. In fact, one of the other contributors at Port Haven, Professor Django, you've seen him on some of the other videos on this channel, he described them as being a little bit like Professor X and Magneto from X-Men. They're these two people that are at odds and at war oftentimes, but they're really the only two people that understand each other, and I really like that idea of their relationship going forward. These are two characters that can really only be understood by each other. There's no one else with their level of power and their drive for a destiny that can comprehend what they're going through. They're enemies, but they need each other. With that said, I'm not really sure how to conclude this video because the story between Kylo and Rey hasn't concluded, and much of what I'm saying here has been speculation. But I guess in summary, what I'm saying is these Force Skype sessions kind of show the deepening of their bond. It starts as something that's kind of artificial. I mean, the bond isn't artificial, I don't think, but Snoke was manipulating it, and I think Snoke has a little bit less to do with it as time goes on, and then obviously the last time he has nothing to do with it. So I think we're seeing this connection between them, and I think that connection is going to be critical in episode 9. So with that, I'm going to leave it here. Be sure to follow us at Port Haven Forums on Twitter. Visit us at port-haven.com to come and see what we're all about. We have forums there where we'd love to discuss things with you. I would love to discuss things with you in the comments if you're more about that. Let me know what I got wrong. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Now cooking candies are